Hello, my people, and welcome back to another episode of Sit, Sip, and Chat. My name is Glenda York of GCY Initiative, which is a destination marketing initiative based on the island of St. Martin. And Sit, Sip, and Chat is where I sit with different persons in the community, and we have a chat about what they have going on. But today we're doing it a little bit different. Instead of talking about what she has going on, we're going to talk about an event, a holiday happening here on St. Martin. And I have with me here Miss
Mrs. Fine.
Doctor, no. Put some respect on your name. Dr. Rhoda Arrindell.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Rhoda.
Hi there.
Thank you for being
My
with
former student, guys.
Let's jump ahead. Okay,
Yes.
so before we get into the conversation, we're going to do a little bit of a guest intro about Rhoda. You guys know how this goes. Rhoda, if I say anything that ain't true about you, you just correct me and make sure we're giving the people them pure facts. Dr. Rhoda Arrindell is accomplished academic and advocate from St. Martin. She holds degrees from Syracuse University, the University of the Virgin Islands, and the University of the Netherlands Antilles, now former Netherlands Antilles, and pursued her PhD.
And university, yeah.
And pursued her PhD at the University of Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
She has contributed to literary works as a senior editor and author, including her first book, Language, Culture, and Identity in St. Martin.
True.
Which examines the impact of language insecurity on the island identity and critiques the colonial legacy.
Wow.
Her advocacy focuses on St. Martin's independence from the Netherlands. She has actively addressed the local parliament, requested referendums, and sought to place the island back on the United Nations list of non-self-governing territories. In 2022, as head of the One St. Martin, One SXM Association, she submitted a resolution to Parliament and gained international attention by rejecting the Netherlands' slavery apology without reparations during an interview on CNN. She is also my former English professor at the University of St. Martin and former Minister of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sports.
Yes.
I needed to include those other two parts because I found them to be very important.
Right, very important. People keep forgetting that part.
People keep forgetting that part.
Yeah.
They just look at the recent and forget the history.
And then the thing
has
on decolonization, like independence, also from France. Don't leave them out. You know
This is what Wikipedia gave me. I work with what they gave me. But that's a good point.
That's good, yeah, because poor us, 37 square miles, but 2 colonial masters.
That's a conversation for another day.
Yes, ma'am.
But first, we're going to start off with who you be, who you for.
Who are
We're talking about St. Martin Thanksgiving. So let's start off with your roots. Where are your roots coming from? And also, because again, St. Martin is such a small community, Rhoda is actually family to me.
Yes.
Somewhere, but we're related. But where do your roots come from?
Okay, I always start with my great grandmother, only because when you start to look how the thing went, you can go back. So the up until her, everybody is on St. Martin, born in St. Martin, go all the way back to even early settlement, right? But she, as a St. Martin woman, my great grandmother, and an Arrindell at that time, because my father tells me the story like this, right? Went to St. Kitts. I had my grandfather.
Okay.
And so, but she was, as my father would say, she was carrying Peters.
Okay.
That's how my father tells the story. She was carrying Peters, but she was an Arrindell, but she was carrying Peters, went to St. Kitts and had my grandfather and his brother in St. Kitts to another Arrindell.
Okay.
And then came back. So now the Arrindell is my grandfather now. Had my father, who was an Arrindell, but he had him, they weren't married, we had him out of wedlock. And so my dad's mom died after childbirth.
Okay.
So my father was an orphan.
Okay.
His father wasn't married, and he was raised by the Yorks.
Hey.
Which is who, Henny York, as according to my father, is who raised him.
Okay.
Because they were family.
Okay.
So that's how the thing go with the York side, right? And the Arrindell side and the Peters side. So if you know Maria Liberia Peters, who used to be former Netherlands Antilles Prime Minister,
okay,
that's one of my father's cousins.
Okay.
And then on my mother's side, it's strictly St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So she's a Pompey. She's a Pompey. She's a, what was it, Conrad. So her whole roots is in the Netherlands, is in St. Vincent. And both my parents went to Curacao to work during the heyday of oil at Curacao. And that's where I was born. I was born in Curacao to a Vincentian mother and a St. Martin father. And in 1969, when the riots happened in Curacao, 30th of May, my father packed his Georgie bundle and come back to St. Martin with his family. That's my story.
That's a story.
That's a story. Because my father went to Curacao because his father was in Curacao, and that's where he acknowledged him as a 19-year-old child. As a 19-year-old man, it finally got back, you know, his Arrindell, if you should say it like that. But it was Arrindell along the line, but he wasn't legal because they weren't married, and his mom died afterwards. So, yeah.
Ooh,
yeah.
That's a story.
Yes, it is a story.
That's a story.
Yeah.
And then quickly before we go to our commercial, what got you into your activism?
That's a good question. I would say education in high school here. High school education.
Okay.
I want to talk a little bit about that because it has been who I've been all my life.
Okay, so then we're going to get into that.
Yes.
We're going to take a break. We're going to have a sip. She sip yet? No, we're going to get her to sip. We're going to get her to sip. We're going to go take a quick commercial and we'll be right back.
Yes, ma'am.
Remember, new episodes premiere every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 p.m. on TV 15 and across other social media platforms.
I'm Jasenia Lassiter, wishing you a wonderful week.
Stay friendly, St. Martin.
Yes, this is
my people, we are back. Rhoda's enjoying her drink. We are back here with Dr. Rhoda Arrindell of 1SXM. We'll do of 1SXM for today.
Yes.
So we were talking about your activist path. How did you get into the activism role?
I began by accident. And this was in school in MPC, Milton Peters College. And I remember a couple of things, and a lot of it has to do with language of instruction.
Okay.
I remember being in school. I remember being frustrated with not being able to express myself in the classroom. And I remember not liking school.
Okay.
I didn't like high school at all in St. Martin. In between, you had some fun days, but I didn't like the experience as high school. And I realized at some point that language of instruction played a role, but also Bob Marley was big in those days. Bob Marley was singing a kind of consciousness about black people and about human rights and all of that. And I was like, but wait, what I hearing on the radio ain't matching what's going on in school, right? It wasn't making sense. So I started, and I would always say this, a Mordechai Mate, I don't know if you remember this. This was a classmate who was Jewish, and I didn't know nothing about Jews and Judaism at the time, but he told me he was Jewish, and I believed him. And we used to sneak off and go to the library to read Bob Marley. They had like information on Bob Marley there. And he for his reason and I for mine. And that's when I started paying attention to certain things. And then at the age of 16, I met Lasana Sekou. And he was visiting his sister at the time, and I was telling him, because his sister was my best friend, and we used to talk about things, but I had nobody in my group that I could talk to about
these things,
so when he went back to New York, he would send me like paraphernalia, and I would hear things on the radio, and I was active as a child, but this part of it came during that period, during my high school days.
That's where trouble started.
That's where trouble started. Because you see it, South Africa, that apartheid conversation was happening, and the world was talking about it, but we weren't talking about it
so
here.
So you had a lot of things going on.
Yeah, Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, those musicians were singing about those things.
Okay.
And I was hearing it, like the slave and the enslaved ancestors, in 1848. I was hearing it,
But it wasn't having a conversation.
but it wasn't happening. So I was drawn to where I could get more information. Then so Bob Marley would talk about Marcus Garvey. I was like, who's this dude? And I started reading about Marcus
And then
Garvey.
it just went from there. Okay.
Yes.
So we have the activist part.
Yes.
So my next question is, how did you get into the linguistic part? What made you want to be a linguist?
And I think going back from the experiences in school, so I signed up Claudette LaBega. I'll always give her the credit for this. Claudette LaBega was at that time Frau Peters at MPC, and she was our social studies. In one class we could speak English in. We were allowed to speak English in social studies, and we were always taught. And this is why teachers are important in children's lives. And I remember when it came to pick your packet and study and whatever, she said to me, I think you should do languages because you're good at it. And I was like, languages? But when I had to go away to school, because you couldn't get scholarships in those days from Curacao.
Okay.
And I wanted to do psychology. I said, I'm going to be a psychologist. And she said two things. She said, you need to study something that not everybody going to want to do. And you need to study something that you're good at. And she suggested linguistics. I had no clue what that was.
Okay.
But I trusted her. And when I applied for the scholarship, Curacao approved it because it was linguistics. And yes, so this is how I guide students now in how to pick their opportunities for study financing, because it has to be something you're good at, something you want to do, but also your chances of because I had no way to get funding to go to school. And I picked it based on need. All my life, a lot of things happened. My doctorate was based on need. I'll tell you some of the tricks when you want.
So how many languages do you actually speak then?
5.
5?
Yeah.
All fluently?
No. I think my most fluent is English, obviously, and I think Spanish is next. If I had to go ranking them, it's between Spanish and Dutch, I guess, will be after Dutch. Dutch will be after Spanish, and then French and Papiamento.
I was just going to ask about Papiamento. I was waiting for the Papiamento to come.
Yeah. I think, it depends, But I think why I say Spanish, I can dream in Spanish. I've never dreamt in Dutch.
Okay.
That's important. In linguistics, in psycholinguistics, that tells you something about whether the child has acquired versus learned the language.
We can have that conversation. I want to have that conversation
There's
with
acquisition
you
and there's
outside.
learning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then from the linguistics side, where have you seen it taken you? Because you took that path. You wrote a book.
Yeah.
So you've seen
I did my undergraduate in linguistics, right?
Okay.
But I thought in my days when I picked linguistics, I was going to go after the UN and be a diplomat, because that was the thing. I was like, they're going to invite me to the UN to do translations, and that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to see the world.
That was the goal.
That was the goal, right? And then when I got to University of Miami, they didn't have a linguistics program, and I needed to switch, but I started to take a linguistics graduate class.
Okay.
At the graduate level, it was a 500 level. And they only did that so I could stay in school before I had to transfer to New York. That's where I realized the connection between language of instruction, the importance of language to success in education. And that's where the bulb went. And it started to, and that's where the whole activists for education, parity, and access to equitable education, and using language because language is we say in linguistics, language is power. Language is power, and when you study how language works in the brain and how it is used as a tool, weaponizing education for success for some, but also to oppress others, then you realize, this is the game. Okay. So let's talk about it back in St. Martin when we get back there. Yeah.
And this is why you're Dr. Rhoda Arrindell.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
My people, we're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have a little conversation about St. Martin Thanksgiving. We'll be right back. My people, we are back. We're still sitting with Dr. Rhoda Arrindell.
It's good stuff.
So fun conversation. So the meat of the conversation is we're here to talk about St. Martin Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Not to step on any toes. Rhoda might disagree because Rhoda like to step on toes. Not stepping on any toes, but St. Martin has its own Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of persons on the island don't realize. So by default, we tend to go with the American
Yeah, that's where we're going to disagree.
American Thanksgiving. And at the last Thursday of November, we see lots of posts of Happy Thanksgiving going around. But we have our own Thanksgiving. When is our Thanksgiving, Rhoda?
Okay, let's go back on this thing by default. I just want y'all to know that this celebration of the American Thanksgiving is very new.
And it's a
It's
controversy in itself.
very, very,
For
very
down
new.
here, yes.
For St. Martin,
Yes,
because
it
it's
is.
not, and it's not
It's
based on
recently.
anything. It's very new. I didn't grow up with it.
No.
And I'm not that old, right? But what the elders told us when we were doing the research for national symbols was that our St. Martin's Thanksgiving, or St. Martin's people's celebration of giving thanks to God, would have come at the end of the official hurricane season. In the early time when it was the end of, it would have been the end of the 1st in November, right? Because that was when they see how the hurricane season are extending. So when they started to give like official marking of a period like June 1st to November, it became the first Sunday after the hurricane
The season
season,
was
which would be the
over.
first Sunday
In
in
December.
December, right? So when you look at it, the way St. Martiners celebrated and said gave thanks, it was to say we are thankful that we were spared
Out of the hurricane
out of the
season.
hurricane
So my
season.
question is, because you said you didn't grow up celebrating the American Thanksgiving,
sir.
which I realized because
remem-
I think that started while I was growing up is when
Yeah.
I think maybe my late teens, early 20s is when I
Yeah.
more so heard people start doing that. But did you grow up celebrating the St. Martin
No, I
Thanksgiving?
remember I told you how my parents were and how they
Yeah,
are. My
that's
mother
right.
couldn't have, because that wasn't something
Yeah,
she would
she would
know.
have known.
She would know, but my father would make reference to it.
Okay.
But again, this idea of celebrating is another thing in the younger days. We didn't celebrate Christmas either. When I say we didn't celebrate, we said Merry Christmas, we did whatever
But
it
you
is.
acknowledged it.
We acknowledge it, but we never, as a child growing up, we didn't get presents and those things. That came later in my life. You know, I don't know any families where I grew up with that did that.
Okay.
In my neighborhood in Sucker Garden where we were growing up, I can't think of anybody. Maybe they did, and we didn't see it. But I can't remember people having gifts and trees. We had the St. Martin people celebrate. Those who had means, they had a tree and they decorated. But the people who I grew up in my village didn't have trees and didn't have those things. So some of the things that we take for granted as matter of fact didn't
Yeah.
always exist for everybody, you know, growing up. So, you know, I did the whole Santa Claus thing from when I got my daughter. But I didn't have it growing up. And then I remember colonialism, going to school here. It was the 5th of December, I think. I don't know what the Dutch version of the thing, but they would
Claus?
make us come home with Santa Claus. But I had to go home now and tell my St. Vincent mother, who don't know nothing about Santa Claus, that I got to take my shoes and put grass in it and put it by the door. And my mother, I remember getting, she didn't beat me, but it was a tough thing for my mother to permit me to put grass in
your
the
shoe.
one pair of shoe that I got, to go put it by the door, come tell me about Santa Claus, come into, you know, it was something she didn't know. So now, again, you're seeing how the school is influencing the
Yeah,
home and the thing.
traditions.
And that's why I keep talking about education, the things that we teach in school, because my St. Vincent mother, who couldn't teach me the cultural heritage of St. Martin, had to defer to the school system,
As the norm.
which was not necessarily my cultural norm either.
Oh, that's a whole. Okay. But are you just bringing up things that's a conversation for another time, and more time it's going to take than we have today?
Yes.
But it's interesting conversation nonetheless, definitely
Yeah.
so. But then because you guys made reference to the St. Martin Thanksgiving.
Yes, so talking to the elders, they couldn't pinpoint a particular day.
Okay.
But what they did say is at the end of
The
the
hurricane
hurricane
season.
season. That was the recurring theme that kept coming back. And then after national symbols was produced, what government started to do was
Okay.
use the official, the first Sunday in December as the official
So
day.
then when
Yes.
did that officially start?
I
if you
don't
remember?
know what year, but I think at least it's in the teens right now. It could be in over 20 years by now. But it's a good, how many? 1999. It's a good long period now. What I think is missing, and I think the point that you're making about this so-called American, and then again, I want to say about American Thanksgiving. Not all of Americans celebrate
That
it.
is true too.
And I have indigenous friends who do
again,
not celebrate
with
it.
education,
They do not celebrate it. I have
African
African American friends who do not celebrate it. And so when I see in St. Martin, people just mimic it and don't understand where the origin of it is. It says that we as a society have to do a lot more in terms of educating people. And to some people, they really don't care what the origin, they just want to say thanks. And that too is understood. But you need to be honest with yourself. A lot of things, if we knew the origin of them, we wouldn't celebrate them.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But all of that is education.
Yeah.
And all of that is research in itself.
Yeah. But that information is available. I don't say part of it is just laziness.
That too. But then you have
Yeah.
to sift through, because there's so much information out there now. Then you have to sift through the
It's about the money.
information
It's
and
about the money. It's commercialization.
Propaganda and all of
It's
that.
about that. That's what it's really all about. Because when I didn't know that when I was at Syracuse University, my indigenous friends said that they didn't celebrate it. I was like, how could you not celebrate Thanksgiving?
It's like a big thing.
You know, I was like, why wouldn't you want to give thanks? And when I really learned the history of it, and I was like, whoa, okay, yeah, I can't be talking about decolonization, injustices in South Africa, apartheid, etc., and recognize, I couldn't.
No, that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
But then how do you think we can get the word out there? Because I think there's a portion, and of course this is why the Once in that's why you're wearing the Once in Martin hat today.
Yes.
There's a portion of us that is aware of the St. Martin Thanksgiving, that show the acknowledgement of this.
I mean, it's a smash up, but it's in this book.
If you had told me, I could have read mine.
What's wrong with mine? Mine is used.
Exactly, but
properly
it's falling
used.
apart. People can't see what it's supposed to look
it
like.
It means it's used. It's well used.
If you can't see what it says, national symbols. It's supposed to say national symbols of St. Martin.
And it's autographed.
And it's autographed?
Yes.
Who's the autograph?
Lasana.
Lasana. Can you show the people your autograph book? Okay.
Okay.
Where she posted.
Oh, this is Akila's version because I have mine at home. See,
so she have here her autograph book of national symbols.
And I bought it for my daughter as a child, when she was a child, to give it to her so she would know about her heritage.
And for those of you that don't know, national symbols is... Tell people what national symbols is.
National Symbols of St. Martin is a book that was, when we were doing the research, Lasana, who came with the idea for the unity flag.
Who's Lasana Siku?
Lasana Siku, our poet extraordinaire, St. Martin, I call him St. Martin's poet laureate. When he was doing he put together a group of people to launch the unity flag, but he did a lot of the research going into the unity flag, and some of us were involved in that conversation. And as we were gathering information, you realize you got more information than you need, and then it came out with a little track. We started off with a little track when we launched the flag, and we try to give the St. Martin people the information about the flag in the track.
Okay.
But the amount of information that you gathered was more than you needed, so it became, and it gradually, it became this book, and and it's been like reprinted how many times now?
Yeah.
Because there's some value, but there's so much information that's out there, but somebody has to put it together so that the others now can read, can refer to it.
Because I definitely think, I think this is how I found out about the St. Martin holidays, like you said, the St. Martin dance. I remember some other information that I didn't know we had here on St. Martin, and then when I was going through the book, I was like, oh, okay. I think that's initially how I found out about the yellow sage, being a St. Martin flower, like those type of information. I don't think I had learned.
Nobody tells you that in school.
Yes, but then when I got this, I mean, thankfully now my daughter has those things that she's learning about in school. But at the time I didn't. And then when I got this book, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. You're getting all of this backstory stuff that you get to now know about. And it adds a pride in what you know and about your island and all of that.
And now going back to the conversation of activism, imagine the language of instruction is not your language, and you're supposed to learn and be successful. What are you going to produce? In what language are you going to produce anything? How many writers do we have in St. Martin that write in Dutch when our school system is in Dutch? How many writers do we have of St. Martin that write in French? Even the St. Martin writers who were educated in the Dutch system, the Dutch language, and they write in English. But when you don't allow that language of the home and the language of the school to complement each other, what you're doing is you're handicapped. You're handicapping the person to produce literature, to produce information that your people could benefit from.
Okay.
So it comes back to that.
But then if a child has, because you have
Mm-hmm.
the linguist, because I remember you were the person that actually told me if a child has between up to 10, I think,
12.
12,
Mm-hmm.
I remember it was a young age, if they're submerged in a language, it's easier for them to take in and apply the language.
Right.
So then if they're...
That's not language of instruction. They're two different things.
You're right, because
Okay.
then it's a language that you're learning at
I'm
home.
talking about language of instruction.
Okay.
Language of instruction says I will teach the child all of its material in this language.
Oh, but when you step out of the classroom, it's
So
gonna be a
now
different
if you
language.
teach me material in a language that I do not feel, that I do not express myself, because what's the purpose of education? Self-expression. So I'm learning the material in a language that I still have to learn in my brain, but how do I reproduce it to you? I'm going to express it in which language?
The mother tongue, the language you...
It cannot be that foreign language.
Yeah.
So what is the role of education now? So how am I educated? I'm schooled, but I'm not educated. They're two different things. When you school a person, you give them facts, and they can repeat it, man. You could give me an exam, so I close my eyes and repeat it.
Standardized tests and stuff.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean I was educated. And that's the difference, and that's why language plays a very important role there.
Rhoda, you up in here causing trouble, Rhoda?
No, it ain't true. It's the facts. These are the facts, and that's
causing trouble up in here,
why we
Rhoda.
fight. We fight so that the St. Martin child can have the same value in terms of educational outcome as any child anywhere in the world. Every Dutch child in the Netherlands went to school in Dutch.
Yeah.
Every French child in France went to school in French. Why shouldn't our people get the same opportunity?
And that people is Dr. Rhoda Arrindell. We here, and that's part also why we need to, I think, more so acknowledge, be mindful of the St. Martin Thanksgiving, because that is a thing that is of us, from the elders, from before any of us was even a thought in the mind.
Yeah.
We had our own Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and
so
they
it's
and
now
they,
to
they
bring
still
that back.
they still say thanks. They get up like today, the hurricane. Whew, right? We didn't, major. You hear people say it.
Yeah.
But the elders said we should give thanks. You know, and so the government is putting on the program. I think that's important. I gotta always give shout out to Shermina and some of the people who over at because I think they were among the people who first started making it an official thing, so that the government of St. Martin would start to acknowledge it and push it. But I think a lot could be done on the private sector as well.
I believe you. The same way we acknowledge one that is not from us, we can acknowledge the one that is actually of us.
Yeah.
Rhoda, thank you so much.
Thank you for this opportunity. And call me back when I want to talk other stuff now.
I think I'm going to call you.
I want to come back and sit and chat.
And my people, that is it. If you learned something, please let me know. Just send us a message, leave us know. If there's anything else, you let us know. Rhoda, thank you for being here.
Thanks.
And happy Thanksgiving, my
Happy
people.
Thanksgiving.
Until the next one.
Awesome.